Hi, welcome back to engVid.com. I'm Adam, and today's lesson is for those of you who will be taking the IELTS test. Now, as usual, when I do an IELTS class, I will speak a little bit faster, a little bit closer to natural speed for those of you who need the extra listening practice. But this is for everybody. There's always something to learn. It's all English. So today we're going to specifically look at IELTS Task 1, and I'm going to give you a few vocabulary that are essential to success in IELTS Task 1. You won't necessarily use all of them every time, but you need to know these 9 words that I'm going to show you, or 10 words, depends how you look at it. You need to know these words so you're ready for pretty much any kind of infographic that comes your way. Now, most of the time, and most of your practice, I'm sure, is graphs. Okay, so we're going to start with looking at graphs, and we're going to look at these 2 words. Fluctuate, a verb, okay, and fluctuation, a noun. Now, from my experience checking students or test takers' essays, this word is quite often misused, okay? I think sometimes people are not exactly sure what this word means. So, to show you, I'm going to show you a graph here. This is a fluctuation. Let's say we're looking at a span of 2000 to 2014. So we're looking at 15 years of sales. Let's say sales and whatever the number is in hundreds of millions, okay? Fluctuate means to go up and down quite rapidly, okay? It doesn't have to be rapid. It could be steady, but there's an up, there's a down, there's an up, there's a down. If you're going something like this, this you don't call a fluctuation. Even though it's not a straight line, it's still not a fluctuation because overall the sales are still going upwards. They're still increasing. Fluctuation, there must be some downward movement as well. There's up and there's down from, let's say, from the starting point. So here we go up, down, up, down, up, down. Here it's mostly up. You very rarely go down below where you started. So overall, you have an upward motion. This is to fluctuate. So you can use it as a verb. Over the span of the recording, of the record, of the 15 years, sales fluctuated from, let's say, 100 million to as a little, and ended up here, let's say it's a little bit lower, to 110. So overall, there was a slight increase, but sales fluctuated throughout the period, okay? You can use fluctuation. If you want to talk about the graph as a whole, you can say the graph shows fluctuations in the sales numbers, okay? The graph shows fluctuations. Sales fluctuated. So you can talk about the whatever's on the x-axis itself, or you can talk about the graph as a whole. Use fluctuate for the whatever item is here, use fluctuation for the graph as a whole. Next, plateau. Now, I know most of you probably know this word. If you're doing IELTS, you've heard this word before and you've used it before. But a lot of you don't seem to understand that plateau can be both a noun and a verb. Just like peak, the highest point, can be both a noun and a verb. Okay? So just to make sure we understand, something is going up. It stops for a while. It goes steady. It goes up again. It goes steady. This area is a plateau. This area is a plateau. So we're going to use the same information, sales and time. So sales increased for the first 5 years. Then they plateaued for the next 7 years. After which they started to rise again until they reached their next plateau. So you see, I've used plateau as a verb. They increased until they plateaued. Then they continued to increase until they reached their next plateau. Verb, noun. Both of them are okay. Try to use both of them. and make sure that you're referring to something. Now, if you have something like this, this could be a plateau. But if you're going like this is not a plateau. A plateau usually is not very short. It has to be somewhat extended. If it's too short, then it's just a little pause. It's just a little steady pause. If it's extended, then you have a plateau. And then let's say it increased again. Actually, I'll use a different color now so we're not confused. And then started declining. So sales increased, they plateaued for a while, then they increased again, then they plateaued again, and then they increased again until they reached their peak. Let's say this is 250. Okay, so sales continuously increased until they reached their peak of 250,000. Now, again, peak can be a noun or a verb. Sales increased until they peaked at 250, after which there was a sharp decline over the next 3 years. Okay? So sharp decline over the next 3 years. Now, if you have the opposite way, you have sales going down. Excuse me. Sales are going down, down, down. Now, technically, you could say they bottom out. Bottom out means they reach their lowest level. But a safer way, because a lot of people also misuse this expression, the safest way, until they reach their lowest point. Simple is best. But peak, you pretty much have to use because you can't say, there's going to be a lot of highest points, highest point, highest point. You have to have sentence and vocabulary variety in your writing. So use peak as a noun, use peak as a verb, use plateau as a noun, use plateau as a verb. Okay, let's continue. You've already heard me use this word, overall. Again, overall does not mean in conclusion. A lot of people use this word to introduce a conclusion. Overall basically means you're looking at the whole graph. So you're looking at the entire span of something. Here we're looking at 2000 to 2014. This is your span. Okay, this is the duration of the information. How long this information is being recorded on the graph. Okay, so you can say that although sales started very low and they fluctuated and they reached a peak and then dropped again, overall there is an increase. What does that mean? It means from this point to this point there is an increase. So don't say it went up, it went down, it went up for this year, then down for this year. Just say there were fluctuations, but overall sales went up over the span of the report, of the reported information. Okay? Now, of course, we're speaking about span. You must use this word. A lot of people do not use this word enough when they're talking about time, a graph with time. Okay? So again, span is the duration from the beginning to the end. And again, span is both a noun and a verb. The graph shows an overall increase over the span of a decade. This word is crucial. Whenever you're talking about movement over time, you always talk about over the span of. Okay? Now, you don't say in the span of a decade. If you say in the span of a decade means between 10 years, something happened. Over the span of the decade means you're talking about beginning to end. So it's very important to use this preposition with span, with motion. As a verb, the information, spans 15 years. Means it goes from, let's say, 2000 to 2014. It covers 15 years of recorded information. Span as a verb, span as a noun. Try to use both. Now again, remember, you don't want to use the same word more than twice in an essay. Unless you're using it once as a noun, another time as a verb, you demonstrate command of this word, which will get you a little bit extra points if you use them correctly. Okay, let's look at some other words. Okay, so now we have a few more words we're going to look at. Now, the reason I chose these is because these are very, very commonly misused. Okay? People send me their samples, they want me to check them. I fix these words all the time. People always make mistakes with these words. Ages. If you're going to talk about age groups within your charts or tables or graphs or whatever, then you're going to use these words. Now, let's say there are groups. There are 4 age groups, 18 to 25, 26 to 35, etc. If you want to talk about this group, now there's 2 ways you can do it. You can mention the young group, the middle group, the old group. Or, if you want to talk about the specific ages, you can say those aged. It basically means who are aged 18 to 25. So this is a participle now, a reduced adjective clause, okay? Those aged 18 to 25 were asked to do this. Those 18 to 25 years of age were asked to do this, okay? This is the exact same meaning. Those aged 18 to 25, those who are, although technically who were, because I used were here, but you get the idea. Those who were 18 to 25 years of age were asked. Years of age. Or those 18 to 25 years old. Do not mix the two. If you use the word age, do not use the word old. If you use the word old, do not use the word aged. They don't go together. It's one or the other. Then you have this one, 18 to 25-year-olds. Now you're making this whole thing into one noun. Notice here's the S, no S here. Notice you have the hyphen and the hyphen. This extra hyphen is because of the range. If you have only 25-year-olds, that's fine. You still have this hyphen, you still have this hyphen, no S, S. And the whole thing is now a noun. So 3 ways to talk about ages, but do not mix them up. And this is a very common mistake people make on IELTS 1. And this is something that the graders are looking for, because this is a somewhat basic knowledge, basic grasp of the language. Now, percent and percentage. People always mix these 2 words up. What do you need to know about percent? Percent is an adverb. Percentage is a noun. They are used differently. When we talk about percent, we always use it. Sorry, this is percent, by the way. You can use the symbol or you can use the word, but don't use both. Always use a number with this word. If you have the word percent in your writing, there must be a number before it. Otherwise, you're not using it correctly. 10% of the men surveyed said that, ... Percentage, on the other hand, means a small chunk of the whole, right? You have 5%, you have a very small percentage of the whole. You have 95%, you have a very large percentage of the whole. So let's say 10% is small. A small percentage of the men surveyed said that ... One thing you have to remember, you're almost always going to use an adjective with this word. Because if you don't, if you just say a percentage, well, 5% is a percentage. 50% is a percentage. 95% is a percentage. So just saying percentage alone doesn't really give me much information. You have to say a small percentage, a large percentage, etc. But remember, always a number, never a number with this one. Now, respectively, this is a very good word to use. Again, people often misuse it. One thing to remember when you use the word respectively, first of all, you must have 2 lists. Okay? You have 2 lists with equal numbers of items, with an equal number of items in each list. That means you have to have a minimum 2 things in the list. You could have many items in the list, but as far as IELTS Task 1 is concerned, I recommend no more than 3. Okay? Now, the thing about respectively, what this word means that whatever the order of the first list matches the order of the second list. So let's look at an example. I have 3 kids, Tommy, Jake, and Katie. They are 5, 10, and 7 years old, or respectively. put a comma before the word respectively. Now, I don't need the years old. I just put it there to show you. You can take it out. You can leave it in. Both okay. This is the first thing in the list. This is the second. This is the third. What respectively tells me is that these numbers match the order. So Tommy is 5, Jake is 10, Katie is 7, respectively, right? The order matches the order. That's what this word is used to do, to show you that. Lastly, the word latter and former. People sometimes mix these two up. Again, you're going to mention two things or two people or two places or two anything in one sentence. Now you want to discuss each of these things individually in the next sentence, okay? So, latter means you're referring to the second thing mentioned earlier. Former means the first thing. So if I take Katie out and I have 3 kids, Tommy and Jake. The latter, who is the latter? The latter is 10 years old. The latter is Jake because I mentioned him second. The former, Tommy, is 5. Former, first. Latter, second. Okay? These are the words that you must fully grasp to use for the IELTS Task 1. At some point in your practice or in an official test, you will use half or maybe even all of these words in your task, okay? Make sure you know how to use them correctly. Also, if you need any more information about IELTS, some more writing tips, check out my site, write2top.com. Of course, go to engvid.com, do the quiz on the quiz section of that site. Don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel and come back again. Bye.